Welcome to the PIO podcast, a forum for all things public information related for police, fire, EMS, and local government. A place to grow and develop your public information skills. I am your host, Robert Tornaveni. I have over 11 years of experience as a PIO and 27 years as a law enforcement officer. I am proud to announce that we have partnered with the PIO Toolkit to expand and grow the podcast. Thank you to Christine Townsend and Law Publications for this amazing opportunity. To contact the show, email robert@piotoolkit.com. We need your feedback on how we're doing. Please rate us on whatever platform you listen or send us a review via email. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast to get notified of the latest episodes. Thank you for listening. Sit back and enjoy the next episode. Good evening. Today on the PIO podcast, we have Melinda Gutierrez from the Dallas Police Department. Melinda, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you for agreeing to come and do this. You are a Senior Corporal with the Dallas Police Department, and the whole Dallas PD has come to my attention based on, you guys are very active on your social, but what really caught my eye was your TikTok, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But how about a little bit of background about you? What is your background as a PIO?
So I have been in the office since 2011. That's when social media was starting to evolve within the law enforcement world. It's funny, one of my friends was telling me I'm one of the OGs because it was when Facebook and Twitter, we had the accounts, they were created in 2009, but they weren't being managed. We weren't putting a whole lot of content on behalf of the department. It was news links that were shared that were, department focused. But I was brought over, they, was asked, hey, Melinda, would you be interested in this position? And I said, sure. And they had quite a few people in mind. They pulled me in, and I was brought in to start putting content on our social. And I have a funny story about that too, regarding Twitter. But that's, my background as far as PIO, that's where I started. And here it is, 2022, and I'm still there. And I love what I do. I enjoy what I do. Of course, things are always changing. The platforms are always changing. So it's staying on top of those. That has been really a challenge sometimes.
So what appealed to you about doing the position? I mean, people always get asked to do things and it's not necessarily something that they want to do. What did you find appealing about it?
Well, I thought it would be interesting to, one of my friends who's a supervisor, she's the one who recommended me for the position. She's like, Melinda, you're on these social media sites, you know how to use them. She said, this will be a great position for you. And you get along with people and, you like being out there. And so I went into it thinking that that's all I was going to do was just manage and maintain social media. I get to the PIO office and they said, oh, by the way, you're going to do PIO duties as well.
Oh,
so yeah. So it was kind of like, oh, okay. So now I'm going on camera and now I'm going to, be on interviews. And I was like, okay, it was a challenge I was willing to accept. And, I wasn't a Twitter person and I learned Twitter pretty fast. And, but it just, doing something new and trying something different was what appealed to me.
Nice. So did you have a communications background?
I do not.
Okay. So,
no.
There's always it's like a 50, 60% difference where there's the communications background major or journalism major that pulls you in and
Yep.
You're very similar to me where I just got asked to do the position. Yeah.
Yeah. No communications background, no journalism background. Although I was in the yearbook committee my junior year of high school. So got that little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah.
So when you first became a PIO, what did you find unexpected about the job?
The amounts of emails we got from the media, being one of the largest police departments, I did not realize how many emails we receive on a daily basis. We are constantly busy from asking about traffic accidents, fatalities, of course, your robberies, your homicides. even community events, if they see something on Twitter now, hey, we want to know more about this. So it was just learning the amount of stuff that we have to do, not only in front of the scenes, but also behind the scenes.
Okay, so this is kind of a two-parter. How big is the police department itself, and how big is your community now? And I know Dallas is a growing community.
Wow. Yes, Dallas is a growing community. As far as exact numbers, I know, we're in the millions. I know that. As far as department, sworn and non-sworn, sworn officers, because that is one of the questions we get asked quite a bit. I know we're roughly 3,000, 3,100, but the whole department probably about maybe 5,000.
Okay, so a very large department.
Yes, it's got a pretty big department.
You've got to be kind of like top 5, maybe top 6, I would think.
When I looked, because I actually did, I constantly look, we are in the top 10. Okay. I believe we're 6 or 7, but we are in the top 10.
All right, so here's the next question. How big is the media relations department?
So our unit, I can say, so my sergeant has been there as long as I've been there, and he's great. He's fixing to retire, so I'm really sad about that, because he's talking retirement now, and I'm not ready to see him leave. But he's been my supervisor for the last 11 years now. We do have an assistant director who is equivalent to like an assistant chief. She just came over. She's brand new. She's really great. I'm one of the 2 senior corporals. We have 2 police officer ranks, and then we have 3 non-sworn videographic specialists.
Okay, so you have a fairly robust media relations department. That's excellent. All right, so this is where you guys got my attention, your TikTok. Mm-hmm. And I really, I think a lot of departments really want to try it, but the few that I've seen that have done it have either been cringeworthy or they don't even meet where you guys are at. You're doing such a really good job with it. And it's funny, in my department, we were just discussing you guys. So it's kind of funny that I was able to get you on and talk about it. So what made you jump into TikTok? And then what is your strategy in using it?
So TikTok, being new, I knew it was coming around. So I created my own TikTok account and kind of was learning the functions. But there was an officer who's in our mounted unit. She's, brand new in the mounted unit, great officer. She was on TikTok as well, so I was following her. She was also recognized by some of our command staff that saw her as well. And they brought her in. We had a meeting. It was mostly with personnel. So if you've noticed, we're using it more as a recruiting tool. Younger generation, yes, they're on TikTok.
I think it's a great way of doing it.
We're using it as a recruiting tool. That's the main function of TikTok. So she was brought in to help. She's helped with a couple of videos. I've actually featured in one video, which I wasn't trying to be. I was just trying to show our officers how to kind of dance. It was at the state fair, and she recorded. She's like, I'm putting you in there. I'm like, great. I wasn't trying to be in it. I was just trying to be on the sidelines. But she has helped tremendously. She's great with the app. When I need her help, I call upon her. One of them, which was, that I did myself, which was, I was like, oh my gosh, this actually went somewhere, was our You Want to Bomb. I don't know if you saw that one. So
yes, I did.
Those are our 2 police officers in our unit. And we hadn't created a TikTok in a while. And I'm like, I need to get one out because we want to be consistent with, getting some content out there. So I showed them the dance the night before. I posted them both the link. They practiced it. It was so funny because the sergeant who was over recruiting, he was like, Melinda, I love you, but I hate you at the same time. We have so many people that are from South Africa because it's a popular song over there.
Okay. They're
calling and they want to come be DPD. I said, well, I'm doing what it's supposed to do. I'm getting people to email and call. And so it's just been a great tool. We have the younger generation who's following us now. Our numbers have the best video was our the challenge, the push-up challenge.
Oh, yeah.
That was when her name is Ana Vasquez. Senior Corporal Vasquez was the one who she did that one on her own. And before we knew it, we were at 2 million followers. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like she really knocked it over the top. And now it's just keeping the content fresh, keeping the content within trending, and not overdoing it.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you, how are you doing that And like, are you specifically coming out with plans well in advance? Because TikTok, in order to be effective, in order to stay on top of the algorithm, you got to have content that's constantly out there.
And that's trending too. That was one of the big things too that Anna and I agreed on was, you know, you got to have content that's trending. You can't just throw something out there. You got to make sure it's trending. You got to make sure it's going to appeal to your younger generation. Before I walked out the door, I talked to our video specialist because he helps with our TikToks now as well. And I talked to him and I'm like, hey, I want to film this tomorrow. What do you think? I sent it to our assistant director. I said, this is the one that I want to try and hopefully film tomorrow. So it's one of those where you got to have, film person who can catch what you need right away, make sure the topic's trending, people that want to actually be in it and not be voluntold.
Mm-hmm.
And you gotta have the personality. Our two PIOs that did the one I did, they were like so gung-ho and they were, wait, we gotta do another take. Wait, we gotta do another take until they got a little more comfortable and they had fun with it. I think that's a tool too, is having officers that want to have fun with it.
Well, you guys are doing a great job with it. I look at it all the time, just because this is something I know eventually I know our department can use as a recruiting tool. I think every department can use it as a recruiting tool because you can tell a story with it if you wanted to as well. And that, TikTok is set up to do those continuing stories by using trending topics. So I think what you guys are doing is phenomenal. Keep it up. You're doing a great job with it. Outstanding. And you guys should look to get into some awards because if you have 2 million followers, that's amazing.
It has, and it has been a learning tool. It was, I'm still learning. I tell everybody every day, social media, you gotta constantly, I'm watching, my fiance gets upset with me sometimes because I'll fall asleep watching TikTok videos just because I'm just constantly just looking at what's going on. Of course, I'm looking at the fun stuff too that I like. There's a couple on YouTube I like to watch. They're travelers and I like to see the places they go. So it's constantly being in the know and staying on top of those, the trends and what's going on and what's happening.
Do you sometimes, like you said, you fall asleep looking at TikTok? I mean, did you like go an hour and go, where did the hour go? I mean, you go down that rabbit hole at TikTok and it can be amazing.
It really can. And yes, I do. I'm trying to train myself to be a little better at, when it's dinner time and it's time to have family time. So I put the phone down. If they're watching a movie, then I can put a headphone on and go through TikTok videos if they're, the guys are watching a movie. But, for the most part, it's telling yourself, okay, you know what, it's enough.
Now you have kids. Have you like asked your kids for, ideas?
I actually have. So I have 3 children, but one of them is a teen. The other 2 are adults, and one of them's home, and he's 15. And it's so funny. My fiance, I've even got him to create a TikTok on our personal account with me, and all our friends loved it. But my son was like, "Mom, you have a timer. You can time it down." I'm like, "Oh wow, I didn't know that." He's helping with the little things that I don't know about. And but yeah, he I'll ask him, "What do you think about this?" He's like, "No, Mom, that's cringe." I'm like, okay, it's cringe.
That's awesome. And you're hitting that market that you want to get. You want to get those younger kids interested so that when they hit that age or the young adults, right now, that's what we need in law enforcement. Recruiting is so hard.
Yes.
Right now. I don't know any agency that has full staff or expects to have full staff in the next 2 or 3 years. So what you're doing is bringing in those opportunities to have conversations with people to say,
oh yeah,
come to DPD.
We go out to the academy. We film some PT stuff at the academy. We are trying constantly to think of new things to do because that's exactly where people, the younger generation is on TikTok and Instagram as well.
All right, so let's change gears here. So since becoming a PIO, you've handled some really high profile incidents. And I don't want you to go into specific details, but kind of just give me an idea of some of the things that you have handled that were not the normally everyday stuff.
Well, I do remember when Ebola broke out. That was a big deal. We were with our city PIO, and I can remember we were knocking on doors at 6 o'clock in the morning, trying to notify people of, that there was an outbreak in a certain apartment complex. That was interesting. It was just making sure the messaging got out, but that was a big one I can remember. And we did have July 7th. Of course, the world knows about July 7th.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we had July 7th. I remember where I was at. I was at home. I was not on call. We're on Twitter. We're active on Twitter. We would walk in protest as PIOs, and it would be two. We would have two, one to kind of walk and one to be the one tweeting. And that day, I can remember we needed someone to volunteer to work with the on-call PIO, and I was at an assignment with another coworker, and I was like, God, I hope Sergeant Mitchell doesn't ask me to work tonight, not knowing what was going to happen. So that evening, I remember getting the phone call. It was all hands on deck, and we actually had more PIOs then, because we had one at Parkland Hospital, one at Baylor Hospital, one at the CP. I was in fusion with my sergeant. We had, I could say at one time we had at least 10 PIOs.
Wow.
Maybe, yeah, we used to have quite a bit more PIOs, and it's scaled back, but we don't march and protest and tweet like we used to. We still cover protest, but July 7th was really hard. It was, hard for everyone. And it's something that, as a PIO, it's, you don't want to go to an officer involved shooting, much less, 5 officers that were killed in line of duty.
I mean, that I don't know any modern agency that's handled something like that in one day. It's just unbelievable.
It was, and I went into work at 11 o'clock that night. I think I went home at 5 in the morning, and then we came back. There were still some people in the office, and came back at 11 the next afternoon. And then I started callback that next day. So national media, I've never seen so many media outlets, ever. That was the first time. I'm a big Lester Holt fan, but that's not how I wanted to meet Lester Holt.
No, nobody wants to meet, Lester Holt or David Muir or any of those big figures, in that kind of incident. So yeah, kudos to you guys for stepping up and being in all those places and handling the onslaught of what occurred that day. And I don't think a lot of people realize that, okay, yeah, you have your patrol officers and detectives and they handle their stuff, but the PIOs, there's such a limited resource in an agency. And then you have command staff coming at you. Why is this out there? And you have reporters going, why isn't this out there? And it's a juggling game.
It really is. And then you have officers as well asking, why didn't we get told this? So it really is, it's juggling, but it's also education, information, letting officers understand. A really good friend of mine had no clue. He's like, Melinda, I didn't know how hard working this office does. He goes, I understand it now. So I can clearly, when someone says PIO this or PIO didn't do that, I can explain to them, this is why. Right. We have a great team, and we work very well together. We've always, since I've been in PIO, we've always had a really good team. And, whether it's social media or it's graphic design, getting stuff done, supervisor, I've always had a great supervisor. We've changed lieutenants, we've had majors. I can honestly say that I have worked with a great team as long as I've been in PIO.
Outstanding. So let's talk about crisis comms. And in the last few weeks, incident in Uvalde has kind of like really sparked that off. And I'm positive that Dallas PD has a crisis communication plan. Now, I'm not asking you to go into specifics, but just your thoughts, your basic thoughts about communicating in a crisis and maybe some of the basics that you may do in a crisis.
Well, something like that, yes, it's tragic event. I'm originally from South Texas, not the Uvalde area, but we have gone to the area for the river. But it's communicating with your local law enforcement agencies, it's communicating with your federal agencies, it's making sure that communication is just there. It's very important to, make everyone aware of what's going on. Not only that, it's getting, social media, like we said, you're going to get it out quick there. It's getting, information out to the community as soon as you can. I did follow some of the things going on with Uvalde, and I did see that they did a lot of things that we would have done as far as the reunification center. They had the different partners in the joint press conference. It's just a matter of just keeping that open line of communication, making sure everyone is talking to each other. So when you do get the messaging out, it is going out not only accordingly, but accurately.
Okay, I appreciate you bringing that up, because accuracy is kind of like where things kind of fell apart, I think, in that whole situation. And I'm not pointing fingers. It's just, it's our job as PIOs to try and make sure that we can vet that information before it gets to our executives, and then they go in front of a camera and then misspoke, and then they have to retract something later. So that's stressful on our part, and I know that. And you're trusting that information that you're getting from your partners in the agency, but it's really up to us to make sure, and we go back and verify it before we hand it off and say, hey, this is what happened.
Yep.
Okay, so what advice would you give someone who wants to become a PIO?
One of the big things, like I said, I was more of a hands-on type of learning. I was on Facebook, Twitter, I kind of got the hang of. Instagram, still working on that one, but following it, learning it. Nextdoor, I don't know if you're familiar with Nextdoor. Yep. So we had a chief bring Nextdoor, and I was like, I told my sergeant, why are we bringing another social media site to DPD? But it ended up being, I love Nextdoor now, and I work really well with our contact person. If I have a question, she's very hands-on. She's always easy to talk to, and I was bought in. She bought me into that one. And it's great for communicating to the entire city, because we as the way we have it set up is the divisions can, communicate separately to their divisions, but from our office, we can send a message out to the entire city if we need it. And it's just learning that, best advice is know your social media. When new stuff comes out, don't be afraid to try it. Don't be afraid to, learn it, because it can, and it's okay to look, to ask your kids for advice too. I mean, if you have children, I know my son. So I have to tell you a funny story about him. Don't let me forget to tell you that story, because Arlington PIO, he's like, I think you did that on purpose. But that would be my best advice. If you're an incoming PIO, it's great to have that journalism background. It's great to have that public speaking background, but be tech savvy, be social media savvy, because that's what we're doing now. Here we are in Zoom.
Right.
It's the times. It really is. And it's learning if you don't know, then, take a class, or, so, like I said, I'm self-taught and I'm still learning.
Yep. And that's one thing I think PIOs are very good at now, is realizing that they got to continually learn and continually try new things, because the technology is always changing or it's upgrading, and we need to keep moving with it, because we're not using typewriters anymore, and we're certainly not sending out press releases the way we used to do years ago.
Oh gosh, no. Yep.
All right.
So let me tell you my Twitter funny story. Let me tell you that real quick.
Go ahead.
So when I came into PIO, I said I was learning Twitter. So I was at home and I was working some long hours back then, because we were building our followers. My son was 5 at the time. So I'm on the computer. He's on the iPad that I had everything logged in. Next thing you know, I get a phone call from one of my coworkers. Melinda, are you on Fruit Ninja? I said, no, I'm not on Fruit Ninja. Well, someone just tweeted a Fruit Ninja score from the department Twitter page. And so I immediately go. So it turns out my 5-year-old tweeted his Fruit Ninja score, and overnight gained us like 1,000 followers. It just continued to grow. So I still call him my Fruit Ninja. Arlington, when we had a conference that we went to, They said, Melinda, I think you did that on purpose. I said, no, I absolutely did not do that on purpose, because I'm calling my sergeant like, I'm so sorry. He's like, it's okay. So that's my funny Fruit Ninja story. I say he helped us grow on Twitter. We had some website news links that did stories on us, D Magazine, Dallas Morning News. And it was even, some just on the web. It was so funny. And I laugh about it now. Back then I thought I was going to get in
Oh yeah,
trouble.
you were in a nightmare. You're having, oh my
Yes.
God, no.
I was like, oh my gosh, what did I do? Yeah.
That's a great story. I love it. All right, so we're gonna lighten it up a little bit. I'm gonna do some rapid fire questions for you, real easy ones. Your favorite musician, act, or style of music?
So I love Madonna.
Okay.
I love Madonna. And every time I go bowling, I always play the song Holiday, and I will sing at the top of my lungs.
Excellent. Chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate.
What's a must-read book in your mind?
So I read a lot of fiction, and my favorite author is Emily Giffin. She writes a lot of love stories. So that just anything by her, I love.
Okay. If you could go back in time and talk to your 18-year-old self, what would you tell her?
I would tell myself to study hard. I would tell myself not to try to grow up too fast, and to enjoy life as a young adult.
Yeah, I think all of us could go back and do that. Yep. Favorite drink of choice?
So I love pineapple juice. I love to drink pineapple juice. Of course, if we're talking adult beverages,
Yes.
we love a good margarita.
Frozen or on the rocks?
It just depends. Depends on
the mood.
It depends on the mood. No salt, preferably, but and it's got to be top shelf.
Excellent. What would be your superpower if you could get one?
If I could, make me more of me, to help me with all the different things, be at several places at one time.
That would be every PIO's dream, right?
Exactly.
All right, Melinda, final thoughts. What's the biggest takeaway you hope to have our listeners learn?
Well, don't be afraid to try new things. Social media being one of them, different platforms coming out. Don't be afraid to try them, because initially, like I said, Nextdoor was a tough one for me, but I learned it when TikTok came around. I'm like, I got to learn this. Because I know we're going to end up doing it. So don't be afraid to try new things.
Okay. And how can people best reach out to you if they want to learn more or connect?
So I am on Twitter. I am Melinda PIO on Twitter. Email as well. It's, melinda.gutierrez@dallascityhall.com.
And I will add all that into the show notes. Awesome. Melinda, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And that's Melinda Gutierrez, Corporal, Public Information Officer at the Dallas Police Department. Thank you for coming on the show.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast to get notified of the latest episode. If you are listening on a platform that allows reviews, please give us a review. We appreciate any review, good or bad. It helps us improve on each episode. Until next time, be safe.